You're at the gym. You're pumping iron, getting fit, minding your own business. When in comes a group of soldiers checking everyone's papers, making sure they're not actually supposed to be on the front lines of an ongoing war. We've seen plenty of videos like this. Ukrainian citizens, always men, sometimes simply approached, other times forcibly taken by military recruiters desperately trying to fill the ranks of a depleted war effort against Russia. It's hard to know how often these recruitment efforts happen or how far they typically go, but Ukraine's president, Volodomyr Zelenskyy, has just signed into law a change that would widen the net recruiters can cast. It lowers the minimum conscription age from 27 to 25. And what's really surprising about that is that for almost a full year, this law has basically been sitting on Zelenskyy's desk, waiting to be signed. Ukraine's parliament passed it in May of last year. But the idea of lowering the conscription age is so volatile, so toxic in what is now a 2-year war of attrition, Zelenskyy didn't want to touch it. But the increasingly desperate state of the war has forced his hand.
Ukraine is a democracy. It's governed by rule of law. And of course, it has to be sensitive to how its citizens feel about the war. And that's the reason why there's been this hesitation to actually declare mobilization.
Does this solve Ukraine's problem of replacing the tens of thousands of soldiers who died and many times that number injured? Or does it create new problems that Ukraine uniquely may be ill-equipped to handle? Let's try to understand. Right now, the Ukrainian story is one of endurance.
Sadly, there's still a feeling of grim necessity in Ukraine. Mobilization is essential. People need to fight. Some of them will die. But in Ukraine, it's generally recognized that the alternative is worse.
Recall how in the first few weeks of Russia's invasion, hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians eagerly volunteered to defend their country. But as the war dragged on and Ukraine's counteroffensive stalled, that all changed.
There are growing concerns that the fight back against Russia is stalling on the front lines.
In the fall, Ukraine's top general described the battle as being stuck in a stalemate.
A new U.S. intelligence assessment suggests that the Ukrainian military will not achieve its goal of breaking the Russian land bridge to Crimea before winter sets in.
Consider this op-ed for CNN by the man who, up until this February, was the commander-in-chief of Ukraine's army. We must acknowledge the significant advantage enjoyed by the enemy in mobilizing human resources and how that compares with the inability of state institutions in Ukraine to improve the manpower levels of our armed forces without the use of unpopular measures. Translation: Russia's doing it right. Ukraine is unable to do what's necessary to get more men on the front lines. That's a pretty scathing thing to say, coming from the commander-in-chief of Ukraine's army. He got fired, by the way. But Ukraine is facing this very real problem of how do we replace all of our soldiers who've died? About a month ago, Zelenskyy told the media that Ukraine had lost 31,000 soldiers in the war. We don't know how accurate that is, though, because last summer, U.S. officials quoted by the New York Times put the number closer to 70,000. And Russian officials, maybe unsurprisingly, have said the true number is several times even that. And none of this takes into account the number of wounded, which in war is always several times the number of dead. Point being, many of the soldiers who initially signed up for the war are either dead, hurt, or exhausted. And the pool of people who are left to back them up is both smaller and more reluctant.
Frozen war? I'm very afraid to have frozen war in my country.
Ukraine is in that stage of a long drawn-out war where the initial enthusiasm and energy, if you could call it that, is wearing off, and there's the realization of the long, grim struggle ahead.
Ukraine is like a lot of post-Soviet countries in the sense that after the Soviet Union broke up in 1991, those countries went through a great deal of economic hardship. The 90s were tough in Ukraine, which led to a decline in the birth rate. And today, all these years later, we can see that. The number of 20-year-olds, it's one of the smallest demographics in the entire country. No surprise, military analysts put the average age right now of Ukrainian soldiers on the front line at 40 plus.
Ukrainian army, elder army. It's a pity.
This new law, mobilizing 25 and 26-year-olds, puts a further squeeze on this already relatively small age group.
The people who are 25 to 30 years old are of that generation where there are simply fewer people being born to actually fill labor places. And that's why this is going to hit particularly hard demographically.
As of a few months ago, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry estimated it had nearly 800,000 troops. If you include the National Guard and other units, you might approach 1 million Ukrainians in uniform.
Now, this latest change, it might seem not a very large distinction between lowering the age from 27 to 25, only 2 years difference, but it brings in other cohorts as well. There are other exemptions from mobilization that are now being abolished, for example, having multiple children or having specific health conditions. So it does cast the net wider for people to be brought into the system, trained up, and sent to the front line to replace those who've been holding the line so far.
But there's also a financial burden that comes with mobilizing a larger army. That's fewer people working in the conventional labor force, earning money, paying taxes, supporting a larger military force. And as we begin the third year of war, online and in major cities, you can see for yourself the military's pitch, calling for sacred revenge, a holy victory. But Ukraine is struggling to convince its citizens that this is a fight still worth signing up for. Ukraine has been under a state of martial law since the war began. Part of what that does is it forbids most men between 18 and 60 from leaving Ukraine, unless they're already exempt from military service. But that hasn't stopped thousands of Ukrainians from trying to leave.
Like others, they decided to leave Ukraine before they could get swept up into a war they don't want to fight it.
Every man need to have a choice, you know.
Briar Stewart has done really excellent work on this story, and I'll link her story on YouTube in the description, because she traveled to Moldova, which is just beside Ukraine. And it's there, she says, some 15,000 Ukrainians have fled on foot, under cover of darkness, often seen by thermal cameras since the war began.
Do you feel guilty at all for leaving?
Ну, я себя не чувствую виноватым. Я сохранил свою жизнь. Ну, если бы я пошел туда, я не хочу, чтобы я вернулся домой в гробу, чтобы моя или коллег.
If you count those fleeing to other neighboring countries, the number of people escaping the prospect of being conscripted is likely in the tens of thousands. And there's no shortage of headlines about the lengths to which people will go to escape military service. One recruiter, according to the New York Times, said about a quarter of potential conscripts reporting to his office would pay a bribe. The going rate, $1,000 for a way out. And I've seen since reports of bribes far exceeding even that. Accordingly, medical exemptions skyrocketed last year, about tenfold, according to Ukraine's president. Now, I should say, the majority of Ukrainians still believe in Volodomyr Zelenskyy, and that same majority continues to support the war effort. But Zelenskyy's approval ratings have dropped steadily in the last year, and actually signing up for the war is very sensitive. There's actually an even tougher law making its way through Ukraine's parliament right now that seeks to toughen penalties on draft dodgers and expand the net of who can be drafted even further. And just so you have an idea of how contentious that bill is, at one point, it had over 4,000 proposed amendments.
Mobilization is so politically sensitive in Ukraine is just one of the indicators of how these are two very, very different countries at war with each other. In Russia, there's no such conversation. They've found it extremely easy to sweep people off the streets, to bring them out of the prisons, to target ethnic minorities in order to find more bodies to throw into the front line.
In Ukraine, there are many mothers and wives still waiting for their sons and husbands to be demobilized, brought back, and replaced on the front lines after 2 hard years of fighting, frustrated that so few others are stepping up to take their positions. But in a war that has become a kind of brutal stalemate, where both ammunition and international support are in painfully short supply, there are also many in Ukraine who wonder what future they're fighting for. If there's a chance, they might not even survive to see it.